Let's set aside for now the theory that the Mandela Effect is dealing with parallel worlds. And let's consider that we're in the timeline that we've always been in, the timeline that we were born in. But something very powerful is trying to get our attention. Now stop and think for a minute. If you were wanting to get people's attention and you had the power to change reality at a fundamental level, what would you start with when it came to try to get people's attention? Well, you would start by changing the famous movie lines. And why not Star Wars, one of the biggest movies ever made? The famous line that everyone knows, Luke, I am your father. You would change that line. You would change all of the famous movie lines from Forrest Gump and Jaws, and you would change some of the logos that people are used to seeing, and you would change the traffic lights and turn them upside down that people have to see and notice every day. If something very powerful wanted to get your attention, how would it alter the world? Where would it start? What would it do? So instead of having parallel worlds, you could have something very powerful trying to get your attention, trying to get our attention. What for? I don't know. This could be God. This could be a race of aliens. This could be something trying to wake people up. I don't know. Now, I know there are people who would say, well, technically, when they change the timeline, that's a parallel universe. Well, yes, but we're sort of starting from a different place here, and that's the point. Because it's this thing about that movie, you know that movie they talk about, Moonraker, about the character Jaws and the girl with the braces. Well, now the girl doesn't have any braces, and let me tell you something, that's irrational in every parallel world. That ain't going to work. That ain't going to work in any parallel universe, unless it's just irrational. And guess what? You're in the one without the braces. Is everything else that irrational? That's not the explanation that that's a parallel universe doesn't make sense, because that's not rational in any universe. For the girl to be without braces, now the scene makes no sense. And the problem with what I've been saying is the fact that people have memories that don't match. Some people have different Mandela Effect memories than others. Like people who say that the Korean Peninsula was in Southeast Asia, I can tell you I have no memory of that, ever. And yet I recognize other Mandela effects. Some people who say there was a continent or an island to the west of Australia, I have no memory of that. But there are people who do say that. But I have other Mandela Effect memories. So that's kind of, we're having a hard time explaining why other people are having different Mandela Effect memories. That's true. But wouldn't it make more sense to just assume that maybe this is the one single timeline we've always been on, and maybe something very powerful wants to change the things we all know, like the Bible and the movie lines and the movie scenes and the logos? It just makes a lot of sense when you think about we're still in the same timeline, but something very powerful is just trying to get our attention. Well, if it can do all that, sooner or later it may reveal itself as to what it is.